have a fairly systematic approach that, of course, then can be altered depending on the dream. But I start by inviting the person to tell the dream from inside the dream. So meaning that if you have a dream, you don't just read the words on your journal, although you could do that to bring it back into your memory and bring back details. It's good to read what you've written first, but then put that aside and go into the dreamscape. And in this way, you can only work with dreams that are what my friend Robbie Bosnick calls living dreams. He's a Dutch Jungian analyst who works with dreams in very much a focusing oriented way. Although he didn't take focusing training either. He does exactly that. So it's really funny. But I agree with him that the dream has to feel alive. So you need to be able to go into the dream in your memory, in your body, and have it still be there. Not just your memory of the, there was a tree and a person, but you could actually see the dreamscape again and walk into the dream. So I invite people to tell it from first person, from present tense, as though they're dreaming it again. And what happens is really interesting, because lots of things come in that process that weren't written down. They remember things that weren't even necessarily noted. They'll see new things. The dreams actually change. I believe they change. They're a living thing that changes even when we're not engaging with them. So they might be slightly different than what you remember. And I don't feel like the written text of a dream is really sacred, or that's how the dream is now, because they evolve. And so I basically have people walk through the dream and really just describe their current experience of it, and especially the starting with where it is, because that deepens the experiential aspect of it. If you can engage with the place, with the weather, with the smell, the sounds, all of the senses. So immersing into this dreamscape and looking around. And then what I do, and this is an idea from Jenlin, which I've picked up and I really love, is the idea of finding help in a dream. So looking for the resources, because dreams mostly or very often present challenging, something that's at the edge of our consciousness that wants in or feels a bit difficult. This is why people dismiss their dreams. I think it's, when they say, oh, it's nothing, it's really because it's something, and some part of them knows that and doesn't really want to go there. So I invite them to look around for anything that feels nurturing and to embody the felt sense of that. And there could be many things. And if the dream material feels particularly challenging, I invite them to pick up as many resources or helpful places that they can, so that they will be more able to stay with what the dream might be presenting that's challenging. And it really works. It's like this was from Jenlin as well, the idea that the help you need is in the dream itself. And it's different from, when you're working with trauma. I know this is a very important practice, to be grounded and resourced and find your internal resources. And I suggest people do that with nightmare work, and especially if the dream doesn't have much help in it. But mostly, if the help can come from right within the dream, it's much more potent and appropriate to whatever the encounter is going to be. So sometimes that process alone of walking into the dreamscape and richly reimagining it, and then finding what are helpful resources, finding the felt sense of that, carrying that, is all that's needed. Jenlin said that, once you've done that, you've gotten what's really important to get from the dream, and the rest is kind of like, if you want. But I don't usually stop there. Then I usually invite them, armed with the help that they have with them in their bodies, to look at the images that might be most puzzling or most challenging, or they might be most curious about, and to have either a dialogue with that image, or if they're up for it, it's really powerful to enter into the subjective experience of the image, because I think we get caught up in this idea that our dream ego, the avatar of us in the dream, is equivalent to us and is really the central viewpoint and the main character and all of that. And I don't believe so, honestly. I think that is potentially a representative of our persona or our ego consciousness or our image of ourself. It's usually a kind of fumbling, incompetent figure that can't find their way, is always in trouble. It's not necessarily the only place to visit, and not the most powerful place, really. So I would invite people to embody other characters or elements. They can be inanimate, they can be embodying a place, an animal, whatever kind of appeals to them. And as long as it feels okay to do that. And from the inside of other dream elements, there's a whole nother take on the dream. Like it really does expand a person. And this is specifically how Robert Bosnick works, actually. This is all he does with the dream, is have people embody different aspects of the dream and pick up the felt sense of that and gather up several felt senses at once and hold them all and explode, or so it's quite an intense process the way he does it. And that isn't how I do it, but it is. I've studied with him, and it's interesting because he's very masterful at helping people really get inside of dream elements and not to decipher them or to take them on as like a gestalt idea. It's not like, oh, this is an aspect of myself. It's sort of hubris to think that all of these characters are, shards of us. That goes against the idea that these are actually universal transpersonal forces. But if we feel into them, there's a way that the puzzle of the dream, if there's a mystery or a why am I dreaming about this, or why is this here, a lot of those questions just become clear. From that internal experience of other places in the dream. And there isn't a lot in the way I work of interpretation. It's really more experiencing and letting that insights will drop in after that. But I think of them as a byproduct and not the goal. So I will find help and then invite people to embody different elements of the dream. And the other part is from Jungian psychology, which is to dream the dream onward, or active imagination. And we're already kind of dreaming it onward when we do these things like enter the dream and become different characters or talk to them. But then there might be a natural desire for the dream to continue or for something to shift. The biggest shifts I see are that people might initially be afraid in some way of whatever's happening in the dream, or it might be kind of a dire situation. And yet when people can feel resourced and go into the dream with company and with curiosity, it's like how our perception of things is very state dependent. So when people feel a little more curious and open to what the dream is bringing, the dream itself changes. Something that was dead comes to life. Things like that happen very often. And the dream itself is a different dream. And it needs no interpretation. It has changed. And
that is really interesting. Yeah. Let me just say that back to you, because that's fascinating. I was just kind of imagining it as I was listening to you, that in the dream, if you get the help in the dream, you get that kind of energy from the dream, and you look then at different aspects of the dream, some of which may have been troubling, they can come alive in a fresh way, because having embodied that other energy, you now are different somehow.
yes.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Yes.